I'm leaving you for your sister." The words hung in the air like shrapnel, suspended in that millisecond before pain registers. My husband of 17 years, Jason, stood at the head of our anniversary dinner table, champagne flute raised as though he were giving a toast instead of demolishing our marriage in front of everyone we knew. I felt 20 pairs of eyes swivel toward me, waiting for the explosion, the tears, the scene that would give them something to discuss for months. The restaurant had gone eerily quiet. Even the waitstaff froze, unsure whether to continue service or retreat. My name is Lydia Harmon, and at 42 years old, I'd built a reputation as one of Boulder's most respected interior designers. I specialized in transforming cold, sterile spaces into warm sanctuaries. The irony wasn't lost on me that I couldn't see the emptiness growing in my own home until this moment. "I appreciate your candor," I said, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. I reached for my handbag, extracted a thick manila folder, and placed it deliberately on the white tablecloth in front of him. "Timing is everything, isn't it?" Jason's smug expression faltered as he glanced down at the folder. "What's this?" he asked, his voice losing its performative confidence. "Open it," I replied, rising from my seat. I smoothed my dress, a midnight blue number I'd purchased specifically for this night, and looked around the table at our stunned friends and family. Among them sat my sister Vanessa, her face drained of color, her eyes unable to meet mine. "Please enjoy the remainder of your dinner. The bill has been settled," I announced, then turned to Jason one last time. "I believe you'll find everything in order." The click of my heels against the marble floor echoed as I walked away, my spine straight, my eyes forward. Behind me, I heard the rustle of papers, followed by a strangled sound from Jason. I didn't look back. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped outside, finally allowing myself to take a full breath. My car waited at the valet stand. As I slid into the driver's seat, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. I looked remarkably composed for someone whose life had just imploded, but then I'd had 3 months to prepare for this moment. Ever since I found the first message from Vanessa on Jason's phone, what neither of them knew was that Vanessa wasn't his only betrayal, and I had evidence of everything. The affairs, the money he'd siphoned from our accounts, the property he'd tried to transfer solely to his name, and most damning of all, the plan they'd hatched to push me out of my own company. As I pulled away from the curb, I allowed myself one small smile. The game had just begun. Our story began like many others, a chance meeting that seemed like fate. Jason and I crossed paths at a home exhibition where I was showcasing my designs. He was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in my work. Unlike many men I dated, he wasn't intimidated by my ambition or success. 2 years later, we were married in a small ceremony at a mountainside venue overlooking Boulder. Vanessa stood beside me as my maid of honor, 7 years my junior, but always my closest confidant. She'd whispered, "You found the perfect one," as she helped adjust my veil, and I'd believed her. The first decade was everything I'd hoped for. We built Harmon Interiors together, my design talent paired with his business acumen. We purchased a beautiful home in the hills, hosted dinners for friends, and created what I thought was an unshakable foundation. The cracks began to appear gradually. Jason started working later, traveling more frequently, becoming distant in ways I couldn't quite articulate. I dismissed my concerns, attributing the changes to the natural evolution of a long-term relationship. When Vanessa moved back to Boulder after her divorce 3 years ago, she became a regular fixture in our lives. I was grateful for her company during Jason's frequent absences. "He's just focused on growing the business," she'd assure me when I confided my worries. "Men get caught up in their work. You know how they are." I threw myself into my designs, creating spaces for others while my own home grew colder. It wasn't until I overheard a whispered phone conversation that the first real suspicion took root. "She doesn't suspect anything," Jason had said, his voice low. "Just stick to the plan." When I confronted him, he laughed it off as a surprise he was planning for our anniversary. I wanted to believe him. The alternative was too painful to consider. Then came the unexplained charges on our business credit card, weekend trips when he was supposedly at conferences, and most tellingly, the growing closeness between him and Vanessa. Lingering hugs, inside jokes, the way they'd stop talking when I entered a room. Still, I waited for concrete proof. It came in the form of a misdirected text message 3 months ago. "Miss you already. Can't wait until she's out of the picture." The message was meant for Jason, but sent to our shared iPad instead of his phone. The sender was Vanessa. That night, after Jason fell asleep, I slipped out of bed and made a call to Patricia Donovan, the most ruthless divorce attorney in Colorado. The next morning, I hired a private investigator. "Gather everything," Patricia had advised. "Bank statements, property deeds, text messages, photographs. Leave no stone unturned." And so I began building my case, piece by devastating piece. The discoveries came in waves, each more devastating than the last. The private investigator, Theo Weber, delivered weekly reports with clinical detachment, unaware that each photograph and transcript was another knife to my heart. The first revelation was expected, but painful nonetheless. Photographs of Jason and Vanessa entering a hotel together, emerging hours later, looking disheveled and pleased with themselves. Text message records showed they'd been carrying on for nearly a year. Their betrayal meticulously planned around my business trips and client meetings. "Standard affair protocol," Theo had said, sliding the photos across his desk. But there's more. The second wave hit harder. Financial documents showing Jason had been systematically moving money from our joint accounts to a separate one in his name only. Small amounts at first, then larger sums as he grew bolder. In total, he'd diverted nearly $300,000. Money we'd earned together, building Harmon Interiors. "He's preparing to leave you financially compromised," Patricia explained when I showed her the records. "This is premeditated. We can use that." But the third discovery was what truly shattered whatever lingering affection I still held for the man I'd married. Theo uncovered evidence of another woman, neither me nor Vanessa, with whom Jason had been involved for at least 6 months. Her name was Olivia Winters, a client whose home we had redesigned last year. The photos of them together were intimate, unmistakable in their meaning. "Your husband's been busy," Theo remarked, his expression softening for the first time since I'd hired him. "I'm sorry, Miss Harmon." The final piece came just 2 weeks before our anniversary. Legal documents obtained through Theo's connections showed Jason had attempted to transfer ownership of our mountain property, a vacation home we'd purchased with my inheritance money, solely to his name. The transfer had been flagged and temporarily halted by the county clerk due to missing signatures. "He's planning to clean you out," Patricia said bluntly during our last meeting. "But we've caught him in time." Together, we formulated a plan. I quietly separated our business accounts, changed the property deeds, and prepared legal documents for the dissolution of our partnership, both marital and professional. Patricia suggested I wait until after Jason made his move, whatever it might be. "Let him reveal his hand first," she advised. "It will strengthen our position." I never imagined he would choose our anniversary dinner for his grand announcement, surrounded by friends and family who had been part of our lives for years. In retrospect, I should have anticipated his flair for dramatic timing. Jason always did have a performer's instinct. What he didn't count on was my preparation. Every betrayal, every lie, every scheme, all documented and organized in the folder I'd left for him to discover in front of the very people whose approval he'd down, Jason said, raising his hands in a placating gesture. "I can explain. Explain, she shrieked, thrusting her phone toward his face. Explain why you're in bed with this woman while telling me you love me, while promising me we'd be together after you left Lydia. It's not what it looks like, he insisted. The irony of repeating the same line he'd used on me moments ago, apparently lost on him. Vanessa finally seemed to register my presence. She turned to me, her expression cycling through shame, defiance, and confusion. You knew? She asked, her voice smaller now. About you and Jason? Yes. About Olivia? Also yes. I kept my tone neutral, clinical even. About the money he's been stealing from our business, the property he tried to claim for himself, and the plans you two made to push me out of my own company? All of it. Vanessa blanched. We didn't. She turned back to Jason. What is she talking about? Jason shot me a venomous look. Don't listen to her. She's trying to turn us against each other. I walked to the sideboard in our dining room and returned with copies of the documents I'd compiled. Bank transfers, property records, text message transcripts, the real ones, not the edited versions he showed you. Vanessa took the papers with trembling hands. As she read, her breathing became shallow. Once she's gone, we can expand Harmon Interiors nationally, she read aloud from a transcript. Your design aesthetic combined with my business model will make millions. Lydia is too provincial, too attached to Boulder. She looked up, eyes swimming with tears. You said that was about a potential investor, not about me replacing Lydia. Jason stepped toward her. Baby, you don't understand. Don't baby me, Vanessa snapped, recoiling from his touch. And the money you said you were saving for us to start over? I was, Jason insisted. Everything I did was for our future. Even Olivia, I interjected quietly. Vanessa flipped through the photographs, each one delivering a fresh blow. 3 weeks ago, she murmured, examining a timestamp. You said you were in Denver meeting suppliers. She doesn't mean anything, Jason pleaded. It was just physical. Like I was just physical in the beginning? Vanessa asked, her voice hollow. Before you convinced me we were in love. The realization seemed to hit her all at once. She staggered back, dropping the documents onto the floor. For the first time since she'd entered, she really looked at me, her older sister, the woman she'd betrayed. Lydia, she began, but I shook my head. Don't, I said. Not now. A strange silence fell over the three of us. Outside, normal life continued. Birds singing, neighbors walking dogs, delivery trucks rumbling past. Inside, our little triangle of betrayal seemed suspended in amber. Jason broke first. This doesn't change anything, he declared, addressing us both. The divorce is still happening. The business will need to be divided. We can figure out the rest later. That's when I smiled, a genuine expression that seemed to unnerve him more than anger would have. About that, I said, there won't be much for you to divide. What are you talking about? Jason demanded, the confident businessman persona sliding back into place. Harmon Interiors is worth millions. The contracts alone are in my name now, I finished for him. As of last week, all clients have been transferred to Lydia Harmon Designs. It's amazing how understanding people can be when they learn their designer's husband has been embezzling funds. Jason's face contorted with rage. You can't do that. We built that company together. Actually, I can. Patricia had our partnership agreement reviewed by 3 separate attorneys. The morality clause you insisted on including when we signed with the Westbrook Group last year? It works both ways. Your actions breached the contract, giving me legal grounds to dissolve the partnership and retain the clients. This is ridiculous, he sputtered. No judge will uphold this. 2 already have, I replied. The temporary injunctions were granted yesterday. You'll find you no longer have access to the design studio, the client files, or the business accounts. Jason's phone began buzzing. He glanced at it, then answered sharply. What? His expression shifted from anger to disbelief as he listened. That's impossible. Check again. After another moment, he ended the call without saying goodbye. Problem? I asked innocently. What did you do to the Aspen project? He demanded. That client just pulled out of a $2 million contract. I didn't do anything. Apparently, the Thorntons don't appreciate learning that their designer's husband is sleeping with Mrs. Thornton's sister. I shrugged. Awkward coincidence, isn't it? Olivia should have mentioned her family connections. Vanessa had been watching our exchange like a tennis match, her gaze bouncing between us. Now she began gathering her things, clearly eager to escape. Where do you think you're going? Jason asked her. Home, she replied, not meeting his eyes. This is between you two now. Don't be naive, he snapped. You're as involved as I am. Your text messages, your plans for the company, you're not innocent in this. Vanessa flinched. I never planned to hurt Lydia financially. You said we'd offer her a fair buyout. And you believed him? I asked, genuinely curious after watching him betray his wife of 17 years. She had no answer for that. For what it's worth, I continued, I've instructed Patricia not to name you in the divorce proceedings. Your relationship with Jason is your business now. Vanessa looked at me in surprise. Why would you do that? Because public scandal would hurt our parents, and they've done nothing wrong. And because, I added, I suspect you'll suffer plenty without my help. Jason scoffed. Always the martyr. No, I corrected him. Always the pragmatist. The story is already circulating. You made sure of that with your public announcement. I have no desire to feed the rumor mill. I simply want what's mine, and for both of you to disappear from my life. Jason's phone buzzed again with another call, which he ignored. This isn't over, he threatened. I'll fight you on every front. You're welcome to try, I said. But before you do, you might want to speak with the Department of Financial Services. They're quite interested in those unauthorized transfers from our business accounts. The color drained from his face. You reported me? No, I said. Your assistant Gretchen did after finding the discrepancies during the quarterly audit. Apparently, she has ethical standards. Who knew? Vanessa reached the door first, pausing with her hand on the knob. I never thought it would end like this, she said to no one in particular. It hasn't ended yet, I replied, but it will soon enough. As they both left separately and in opposite directions, I felt a strange sense of emptiness where rage should have been. The confrontation I'd anticipated for months had finally happened. But victory tasted different than I had imagined. The weeks following the confrontation passed in a blur of legal meetings, client reassurances, and quiet evenings alone in the house that now felt both emptier and more mine than ever before. Jason had moved into a downtown apartment, reportedly alone. Vanessa had returned to Phoenix, according to our mother's tearful phone call. She won't tell me what happened, Mom had said. Only that she made a terrible mistake. Some mistakes can't be undone, I'd replied, unwilling to elaborate further. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly, facilitated by the mountain of evidence I'd gathered and Jason's sudden reluctance to fight once the financial investigation began. The Department of Financial Services had frozen several of his accounts, pending their findings, leaving him with limited resources to mount a legal challenge. On a crisp fall morning, I met with Patricia in her office to review the final settlement offer. He's giving up, she said, sliding the document across her desk. Full withdrawal of claims against the business, the house, the mountain property, everything. I skimmed the agreement. In exchange for dropping the financial misconduct charges and a non-disclosure agreement about the affairs. Patricia watched me carefully. It's more than we expected. He's protecting Olivia, I realized. The Thornton family has significant influence in the design world. If this became more public, her reputation would suffer. Patricia nodded. Likely, but it works in your favor. You get a clean break and all your assets. I signed the papers without hesitation. What about Vanessa? No contact from her legal team. I don't think she's pursuing anything. As I left Patricia's office, my phone chimed with an email notification. It was from Theo Weber, the private investigator. The subject line read simply, "Closure." The attached photo showed Jason emerging from a hotel with yet another woman, neither me nor Vanessa nor Olivia. Old habits, it seemed, died hard. I deleted the email without opening the attachment. Some information served no purpose except to inflict pain, and I was finished with pain. 6 months after signing the divorce papers, I stood in the newly renovated Lydia Harmon Design Studio in downtown Boulder. The space, once cluttered with Jason's massive desk and dark furniture, now reflected my aesthetic perfectly. Clean lines, natural materials, abundant light. Like my home. My business had been transformed in his absence. The Westbrook Group had not only maintained their contract, but had expanded it, commissioning me to design their new corporate headquarters in Denver. The Thorntons, after the initial shock, had returned as clients, deliberately excluding Olivia from family events where I might be present. Business was thriving. My phone rang, Vanessa's name appearing on the screen for the first time since that day in my foyer. I hesitated before answering. "Lydia," she began, her voice small. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed to tell you how sorry I am." I sat at my drafting table looking out at the mountains that had witnessed so much of my life's story. "Why now?" "I'm in therapy," she explained, "working through why I betrayed you, why I believed him." The silence stretched between us, filled with 17 years of sisterhood and one terrible betrayal. "He had affairs before me, didn't he?" she finally asked. "And after?" "Yes," I confirmed. "I suspect there were many we never discovered." Another pause. "Mom wants us all together for Christmas. I told her I'd only come if you approved." I considered this. Forgiveness wasn't something I could force, but holding on to anger served no purpose except to keep me tethered to the past. "I can't promise warmth," I told her honestly, "but I won't object to your presence." "That's more than I deserve," she whispered. After we hung up, I returned to my sketches for the Westbrook project. The design featured walls of glass and strategic skylights, allowing maximum natural light to penetrate what had once been dark, confined spaces. Some metaphors write themselves. The divorce was finalized on a Thursday. By Friday, I had changed the business name, repainted the office, and booked a solo trip to Barcelona, a city Jason had always refused to visit because he couldn't speak Spanish. With each step away from our shared past, I felt lighter, more myself. The betrayal of my husband and sister had nearly destroyed me. But in rebuilding, I discovered parts of myself that had been dormant during my marriage. The pieces they fractured had healed stronger than before. I had made my peace with both betrayers. Not for their sake, but for mine. Revenge hadn't come in the form of destruction, but in rising from the ashes they'd created, whole and undiminished. They had expected me to crumble. Instead, I had rebuilt an empire. The ultimate victory wasn't in destroying them, but in finally truly discovering myself.